Good day. The big problem with the Elder Scrolls series is the fact that once you complete one, you immediately want to play another game like it. After I finished Oblivion, I couldn't wait for Skyrim, and after Skyrim, well, I couldn't wait for a game like it, even though Elder Scrolls Online looks like a pretty big WoW ripoff. Now, there's always something you can do. If you started with Oblivion and also Skyrim, you might want to play an earlier Elder Scrolls game. Well, after I finished Oblivion and while I was waiting for Skyrim, I decided to buy Morrowind, and well, it didn't end well. Just take a look. Yeah, couldn't kill a rat because of the damned dice roll combat system. You see, you can stab at a rat all day long, but it won't matter unless the game actually has the dice roll in your favor. Now, after I completed Skyrim, I was in a pretty big video game limbo. There just aren't that many games like the Elder Scrolls series. But then I discovered Morroblivion, a mod that is a total conversion for Oblivion that turns it into Morrowind. So basically, you get all the greatness of an Elder Scrolls game with the great combat system of Oblivion. Now, before we take a look at the mod itself, let's first see how to get it to actually work. For Morroblivion, one must have the following items installed. First, one must have installed Oblivion itself and the Shivering Isles expansion, and then you must have also installed Morrowind and its two expansions, Tribunal and Blood Moon. Now for Oblivion, one must have the most up-to-date patch installed, and furthermore, you're going to have installed the unofficial Oblivion patch. This can be found on the website known as Oblivion Nexus, and this is where you're going to get the majority of these mods from, except the Morroblivion mod itself. Now, installing the patches is easily done and really only requires one to point the software to the installation directory. After you have Oblivion patched, you will then need to download the Oblivion Mod Manager, which can of course be found on the Oblivion Nexus website. The installation for this is just as easy as the installation for the patches. Just tell it to install into the Oblivion root folder. Then you are going to need to get OBSE, or Oblivion Script Extender. Now installing this is version specific. If you have the retail version of Oblivion, which is the version I have, you will need to copy these three files into the Oblivion root folder. If you have the Steam version, you will have to copy these three files into your Oblivion root folder found in your Steam apps folder. Also, with the Steam version, be sure to enable the Steam community option, otherwise this will not work. Once you have done all of this, it's time to get the mod proper to work, and you need to download it from this website. And the first file you need to download is the master file. And to install this, you just run the exe and point it to the Oblivion and Morrowind root folders. And then you need to actually download the mod itself. Now before you install it, one must have first downloaded several other mods as well. First, you need to get Eli's silent voice. The reason for this is because there is very little voice acting in Morrowind, mainly just greetings and combat dialogue. So what Eli's silent voice does is it ensures that you, the player, have enough time to read the dialogue text. Without this mod, whole paragraphs of text will pop up and then disappear within seconds. In addition to this, you will also need to get more Oblivion-themed loading screens for that added immersion. Now, there are other mods for this game, up to and including voice acting mods. I have personally decided to go as close to the original source material as possible and forego voice acting, but the method of installation for these other mods will be more or less similar to what I'm about to show you. The first actual mod files you need to install are the main Morroblivion files. One will need to place these files into the Oblivion data folder. If it asks you to merge or overwrite files, do so. After this is done, you then need to copy over the silent voice mod and the loading screen mods into the Oblivion data folder. After you complete that, you need to open up the Oblivion Mod Manager and configure the loading order. Now, one must remember that some mods will require a specific load order that will vary on a case-by-case basis. The load order for this mod is as follows. The Morrowind.ob must load right after Oblivion.esm, and then the various other Morrowind OB files must then be placed at the very bottom of your load order. Any other mods that you have must be placed above these files. So after you have all that done, you are in theory ready to play the game. So now let's take a look at why this game is worth all the trouble in the first place. Now, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. This is a review of Morroblivion, a mod for Oblivion. This is not a review of Morrowind, a classic game that has a crappy combat system. Just remember, Morroblivion review, not Morrowind review. You have been warned. The gameplay is, of course, completely identical to that of Oblivion. The combat is in real time and does not rely on a dice roll system. Basically, you take your weapon of choice, target an enemy, and attack them till they die. Combat in Morrowind really was horribly frustrating. It was my biggest complaint. Really, if you're stabbing at something, it should die. You cannot miss 15 times when you're 2 inches away. Just take a look at this. God damn it, die already! Die, damn you! Oh, come on, is my character just stabbing at the air because he's afraid to hurt it? Great. Killed by a worm. I am certainly having fun now. And here is the same fight with the Oblivion engine. Prepare to meet Mehrunes Dagon in Oblivion! See, that's just a little bit more fun. In my opinion, the combat in Oblivion is just far superior to the combat in Morrowind. It's just so much more fast and fluid, and it's actually fun. In all reality, dice roll systems do not work in first-person RPGs. They work well in turn-based games, but when you try to stab a worm 26 times with a dagger and it doesn't die, that kind of ruins any immersion whatsoever. The game's magic system incorporates spells from both Oblivion and Morrowind, which means you get access to the levitation spell! Flying around is really awesome, and it does get you from point to point fairly quickly, even though the game will probably crash more so than usual. Now, despite this being a mod, and a fairly ambitious one at that, this game is actually fairly stable, being no more or less stable than the vanilla Oblivion. Despite Morroblivion using the Oblivion engine, there are several differences between this game and base Oblivion. First and foremost, you do not have access to any horses, but seeing as how this still uses the Oblivion engine, you will eventually level up enough to be faster than the horses themselves. This game does keep the fast travel system seen in Oblivion, but unlike in Oblivion, you cannot just fast travel to every major city in Vardenfell. Rather, you must first discover them. Now, you can discover them by either walking or choosing one of the many transportation options. You can take this giant bug known as a Silt Strider, or you can teleport from Mage's Guild to Mage's Guild by using a guild guide. Now, like in Morrowind, this game does allow you to just walk from city to city without ever using a loading door, which I find really quite amazing, really. The damage and repair system is exactly identical to the one in Oblivion, and I'd like to take a moment to just talk about this. This system is very satisfying. Sure, it's one other thing you have to keep track of, but damn, if you've been playing for 10 or more hours with the same armor and weapon set, you feel pretty bloody proud in keeping it in good working order the whole bloody time. This actually makes the weapons and armor feel like weapons and armor, unlike in Skyrim, where the weapons and armor feel like extensions of your player character's body that can be repaired by just drinking a healing potion and going to sleep. Morroblivion uses the same disease system as Oblivion, so rather than trying to find cures for 3 types of diseases, like in Morrowind, you instead just have to drink one cure-all potion. Shrines in this game work differently as well. And I really like the fact that you have to pay to actually get healed at a shrine. Also, each payment only covers one healing option. Now, there's one thing that I'm glad that the creators did not include from Morrowind was the lack of quest markers. I hate RPGs that do not have quest markers. I do not want to spend 2 hours trying to find the exact place I need to go or trying to find the exact person I need to talk to. Now, Morroblivion actually does some sort of a compromise. You see, you do not necessarily get a quest marker for every single quest. What you normally have to do is you have to get a lot of information before the quest marker even pops up. Now, this does not necessarily become an issue with the main or faction quests because usually you get all of the information you need when the quest is actually being given. And now, let's move on to the graphics and the game world itself. Sure, the graphics are a bit dated by this point, but damn is the actual game world better than the game world seen in Oblivion. A common complaint about Oblivion is the fact the world is very generic, and damn is it ever. Another complaint that one hears is the fact that Oblivion is very simplified, and damn is that true. In Morroblivion, each region of Vardenfell is distinct and unique, and overall the world somehow feels bigger than Oblivion's. Each city is is actually different from one another. Here is Balmora, and then here is Aldruin. See the difference? See how they don't just look like generic fantasy cities? The dungeons even have some unique designs as well, and they don't all just look the same. And as for places that you can explore, there are no longer dozens of ruined Imperial forts dotting the landscape. Rather, the Imperial forts are all in one piece and manned. The architecture for this game just looks so much more unique and impressive. Case in point, Vivek. Look at this. Look at this. Let's take a look at this from a drone's eye view and look at how awesome this architecture is. Compare this to the rather boring Imperial city. Also, this city has a giant floating thing. Look at this. I'm not even sure what this is, but damn is it cool. Even the main Imperial castle is better than any castle seen in Oblivion and Skyrim. Look at this. Absolutely imposing. It actually looks like a legitimate fortress. And finally, this is the ghost fence. Words cannot describe just how amazing this thing looks. And I can really see just why there are so many Elder Scrolls hipsters out there that say that Morrowind is vastly superior to Oblivion. Too bad the combat sucks, but anyway, the art design for Morroblivion is just exquisite, and surprisingly enough, makes for a much more unique world than Oblivion's ever did. As for the music, in this mod you will hear some songs from Morrowind and some from Oblivion. The ones from Morrowind are really quite good and set the atmosphere very well. Just listen. Upon playing this game, I can see why some Elder Scrolls fans say that Morrowind has a better story than Oblivion. When you first start the game, you are thrust right out into the world. All you have is some sackcloth garments and an iron dagger. This isn't Oblivion or Skyrim. You don't start the game with iron armor and a sword. Hell, it's actually pretty easy to miss the iron dagger. So it's possible that you might start the game with absolutely nothing but the sackcloth. After you leave the first town, you should come across a dead mage, and after you loot the body, you will have at least some clothes and an enchanted weapon. Really, the early parts of the game are very satisfying as you build yourself up from an unarmed former prisoner to an armed and armored badass. Eventually, after leveling up a bit, you then go to find your contact in the city of Balmora. And unless you are a high enough level and progressed fairly far in a faction, your contact won't even talk to you. Really, the plot for Morroblivion is, in my opinion, better than the one seen in Skyrim and Oblivion, respectively. In Skyrim, you are the Dovahkiin, and you must fight dragons and deal with the Civil War. In Oblivion, you had to stop an evil god. Here, you don't get to the main plot unless you play the game for a very long time. And even then, it is a very subtle plot as well. Essentially, you have to unravel the mystery of the Neverending cult, and it takes a very long time to actually figure out what the main threat even is. The factions for Morrowind are far more numerous than seen in Oblivion or Skyrim. You have the Fighters Guild, the Mages Guild, Thieves Guild, Imperial Cult, Morag Tong, the Great Houses, the Imperial Knights, the Imperial Legion, the Vampire Clans, the Tribunal Temple, the East Empire Company, the Blades, G.I. Joe, the Rebel Alliance, the Autobots, the Spectres.
General, those last few aren't actually in the game.
Well, I know for a fact you can join Soldier.
That's from Final Fantasy VII. Okay,
I got it. Okay, you can join the greatest faction of them all, the Princess Guard.
No, that one is actually in Dark Souls, so I'm sorry, but no sexy playboy goddess for you, or really just girly sounding name.
And even these quests are fairly deep and involving. Both the Fighters Guild and Mages Guild have a great deal of corruption within them. The Thieves Guild is at war with the Morag Tong, and the Great Houses have agendas of their own. Story-wise, Morroblivion is far superior to both Skyrim and Oblivion, and if it weren't for the horde combat, I would say that the classic Morrowind was the best Elder Scrolls game of them all. Do I even need to say it? If you liked Oblivion and if you liked Skyrim, and you tried and failed to play Morrowind, download this mod, and your mind will be blown with how great it is. And so this is General Lotz wishing you good Nehrim, good Path of Exile, or whatever makes you happy.